The testimony given in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God?
I do.
Good afternoon, Ms. Harper. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
My name is Brianna Harper. I'm 25 years old, and I work for the school board of Polk County.
How long have you worked for the school board?
Since December of 2019.
And did you grow up in Polk County?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know Adam Hilaire?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know him?
He was my boyfriend of 2 years.
And at the time that Mr. Hilaire was murdered, were you still in a relationship with him?
No, ma'am. We broke up a month prior.
The apartment that Mr. Hilaire was found in, was that an apartment that you shared with him?
Yes, ma'am. It was under my name until August 1st of 2016, and I signed it over to him then.
How long had you guys lived in that apartment?
Since October of 2015, I want to say. So about a year.
And did anybody else stay there with you and Adam during the time you lived there?
His daughter.
At the time that Adam was murdered, how old was his daughter?
5.
When you moved out of the residence, was there an individual by the name of John Hunn who stayed at Adam's apartment on occasion?
No, ma'am.
How about in the weeks leading up to Adam's murder?
Not that I was aware of, because I did not make very much contact with Adam because of the breakup.
So you didn't know who was staying there?
No, ma'am.
Do you know a person by the name of Chris Rogers?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know him?
Him and his wife were our neighbors whenever we were living there.
Was that a friend of you and Adam's?
It was a friend of Adam's, and then because we were together, we hung out with them.
I want to talk to you about the apartment itself. When you lived there with Adam, did you ever observe any damage to the ceramic tile on the bar that separates the kitchen and the living room?
No, ma'am.
Was there damage to the blinds that were located in the kitchen area?
Yes, ma'am.
What was that from?
It was like that whenever we moved in, and then we had kind of a crazy cat that also damaged it more.
Were you familiar, even though you didn't have as much contact with Adam leading up to his murder, were you familiar with the items that Adam had in his apartment when you left there?
Very familiar. Yes, ma'am.
Did he have televisions?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he have multiple televisions?
I want to say 2.
Do you remember where they were located at the time that you lived there?
When I lived there, my bedroom furniture was still in the bedroom. So there was a big one in the bedroom and then a smaller one in the what we would use as a living room or Lejea's bedroom.
Okay. So when you lived there, you and Adam shared the one bedroom that's in that apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Lejea, his 5-year-old daughter, would stay out in the living room area?
Yes, ma'am.
The size of the televisions, do you remember the size?
I want to say the one in the bedroom was around like 65 inches because I know he wanted a really big one, and it took up almost my whole dresser that I had. I couldn't see out of my mirror anymore because of his television.
And then what about the one out in the living room?
I want to say around like 32 inch.
Did Adam have an Xbox when you lived there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. An Xbox One.
Did he have games?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he have a cell phone?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of cell phone did Adam have?
We actually had matching ones. Mine was silver. His was gold. We had iPhones.
Did Adam have any jewelry?
Not that I'm aware of at that time. I knew he had a grill for his mouth, but not anything else.
Okay. Did he have any jewelry that you were aware of for his daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that.
It was like a roped chain, and it had a heart on it, and it said "Daddy's little girl," which is what he always called her. That was just, he always referred to her as that.
show you what's been introduced into evidence. State Exhibit number 9. I want you to take a look at that chain.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize the chain that's contained within this item?
I do.
What is it?
It's his daughter's chain that he bought for her.
The one that says Daddy's Little Girl?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you familiar enough with Adam's games to be able to recognize those?
I'm not completely specific, but most of sports games or shooting games or something like that. Yes, ma'am.
Now, even though you had not as much contact with Adam, did the two of you, after you moved out, did the two of you continue to communicate on occasion?
On occasion, yes, ma'am.
When was the last time you spoke with him prior to his murder?
Through a text message. Wednesday night leading into Thursday morning, and then also Thursday night-ish. I want to say afternoon night-ish.
So the 18th of August?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during the time that you were in a relationship with Adam, did he have a hat collection?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you become pretty familiar with that hat collection?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, he had pretty much a hat to match every pair of shoes that he had. Whenever we first got together, I got tired of seeing the same shirt with the same hat, so I would go buy a different shirt for him to wear, so it wouldn't be the same ones every time, because I was a person that took pictures a lot, and I didn't want the same ones. I was just being a girl, and we matched. I didn't want the same shirts to be in the same pictures, to be in pictures.
How often would Adam wear hats?
24/7 pretty much, until he laid his head on the pillow to go to bed. One time I remember not wearing it because it was a really nice restaurant, but he wore it up until we walked into the restaurant door. He left it in the car. But besides that, he always had one on.
Okay. When you moved out of the apartment, did he still have those hats there in his apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did he keep them when you lived there?
When I lived there, my mom is a very organized person, so she bought a hat rack to put on the back of our door so they wouldn't be scattered everywhere. And he had them all hanging on the back of our bedroom door.
When did you first learn that Adam had been murdered?
Friday night, I got a phone call from my mom.
And did you go then over to the apartment that you used to share with Adam?
I wanted to. My mom advised me that it probably wasn't a good idea, so she picked me up and took me to where she was at.
Okay. Were you interviewed by detectives at that time?
Not Friday night. It was more of a Saturday afternoon, because I remember we were having a candlelight for him at his apartment, and it happened before then, and we waited till nighttime to have the candlelight. So it was in the afternoon time of Saturday.
At that time, were you asked about things that were in Adam's apartment?
No, at that time he was just wondering the relationship between us two, if our breakup ended badly, if, I knew of anybody that would want to hurt him. And then I was also showed a picture of a Hispanic female that I did not know, and he was just asking me if I recognized her.
Okay. So you had never seen that Hispanic female?
No, ma'am.
Now, moving then to the next day, Sunday, August 21st, did law enforcement get in contact with you again?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was in that reference to?
They said that they would like for me to come down to the station. They have some things that may or may not be his, and they just want to clarify it.
Okay. So did you go down to the police station?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you see when you got to the police station?
I was taken out to a building behind the police station where they kept evidence, and I was told to, don't touch anything. They opened up a car door and showed me hats that were displayed in a car door, or inside the car.
The car, was it a white car?
It was.
And the hats that you observed, were they in various locations within the car?
Yes, they were on the back dashboard and then in the seats, and they positioned them, I guess, so I could see them clearly.
When you saw those hats, did you recognize those?
I did. I started rambling off to the detective, like different pairs of shoes that he wore with that, or I noticed a hat that I asked for, that I wanted to keep for remembrance of him, and it wasn't given to me because I couldn't find it, and it was in the car.
Okay. So after he was murdered, you requested to have that hat.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that okay? And the family couldn't find that.
Yes,
hat.
ma'am.
So this was one of the hats that was in this white car that you observed down at the police station.
Yes, it was the national championship hat that was all black with silver writing.
Now, do you remember the detective's name or the sergeant's name that you were talking to?
I remember on Saturday the one that interviewed me was Sergeant Spell. And I also went into his office with the pictures and stuff, but I don't remember the one that showed me the car and the hats.
Okay. Now, after you saw the car and the hats, did you talk to Sergeant Spell again and show him additional photographs of the hats with
Yes, ma'am.
Adam wearing them?
Yes, ma'am.
And did he ask you to provide him with photographs of Adam wearing the hats?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
And did he create a Word document and have you sign that, yes, you identified these hats, or no, you didn't identify these hats?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, do you remember how many hats you were shown at that point?
I want to say around 7 or 8.
Were you ever shown any additional hats after that?
Not by law enforcement.
Not
no.
by law enforcement. Okay. Have you had an opportunity to observe and view some additional hats
Yes,
since
ma'am.
then?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to identify even more hats as belonging to Adam?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to provide some additional photographs of Adam wearing some of those hats?
I was.
I just want to walk through these one at a time and tell us if you recognize these hats as having belonged to Adam and how you're able to do that,
Okay.
if you do recognize them. And I want to start with State Exhibit number 18. Do you recognize that hat?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so this is one that you did not recognize.
No, ma'am.
And what about State Exhibit number 15?
Yes, ma'am.
You recognize that hat as belonging to Adam?
Yes, ma'am. I've seen a photograph with him wearing it, and then also he had it in our home, but wouldn't wear it because of the stain on it, because he was very particular.
Okay. And State Exhibit number 22, do you recognize that hat?
Yes, ma'am.
And how are you able to recognize that?
A photograph.
Photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
With Adam wearing this?
Yes, ma'am.